Welcome back to Payback Tales, the channel where real people share the moments that changed everything. I'm your host, and today's story is one that had our entire team speechless. It's not a story about a bad marriage. It's not a story about hatred. It's actually a story about two stubborn people who love each other, but both refuse to blink first. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let me tell you about the trip that started a war and the homecoming that ended it in the most unexpected way possible. Our storyteller today is a 34-year-old woman named Sarah, not her real name, but her real story. Sarah had been married for 6 years to a man named Daniel. By most measures, they had a good life. A house in the suburbs, 2 dogs, decent jobs, a shared Netflix account. But like most couples who've been together long enough, they had their patterns. And one of those patterns was Daniel's habit of calling Sarah constantly whenever she was away from home. Now, to some people, that sounds sweet, devoted even. But Sarah will tell you it felt less like love and more like a leash. Every girl's trip, every work conference, every overnight visit to her mother, Daniel would call and text. And then call again to ask why she hadn't responded to his text. Sarah had brought it up many times. She'd asked for space. She'd explained that she needed room to breathe, to laugh with her friends, to exist without being monitored every hour. Daniel always agreed in the moment and then did the exact same thing on the next trip. So this time, Sarah made a decision. She was heading to a bachelorette weekend in Miami with 5 of her closest friends. 4 days, 3 nights, sun, ocean, and 0 interruptions. She told herself, this time will be different. And she made sure of it in the most direct way she could think of. The night before she flew out, she blocked Daniel's number. And honestly, the trip was everything she had hoped for. Sarah and her friends hit the beach on day 1, found a rooftop bar on day 2, did a sunset boat cruise on day 3, and slept in on day 4 before catching their flights home. Sarah described it as the first time in years she felt completely, totally herself. No check-ins, no guilt, no explaining what she was doing or who she was with. Just 4 days of pure, uninterrupted friendship. She did think about Daniel occasionally. She wondered if he was okay, if he was angry, if he even noticed she'd gone quiet, or if he assumed she was just busy. She told herself she'd unblock him on the way to the airport and explain everything calmly when she got home. She'd tell him it wasn't about punishing him, it was about finally getting the breathing room she needed. She rehearsed the conversation in her head on the flight back, feeling confident and clear. She landed, collected her bags and called a rideshare home. She unblocked Daniel's number. No missed calls came flooding in, no texts. She thought, maybe he actually respected the space this time. Maybe he'd grown. Maybe this was the turning point. She was almost proud of him as she unlocked the front door, wheeled in her suitcase and stepped into the hallway. The house was quiet. A little too quiet. The dogs didn't run to greet her, which was immediately strange. Sarah called out Daniel's name. No answer. She walked into the living room and stopped cold. The furniture had been rearranged, not dramatically, not chaotically, but noticeably. The couch was on the other wall. The bookshelf had been reorganized alphabetically, something Sarah had been meaning to do for 2 years and never got around to. The kitchen was spotless, and she meant spotless, in a way it had not been since they moved in. There were fresh flowers on the counter, her favorite kind, peonies. On the kitchen table was a handwritten note. Sarah picked it up. It read, "You needed space. I spent 4 days giving it to you and to myself. The dogs are at my mum's. Dinner is in the fridge. See you when you're ready to talk. D." Sarah stood there in her travel clothes, suitcase still behind her, and read that note 3 times. Then she looked around the kitchen again. Then she opened the fridge. There was a full, home-cooked meal, her favorite, pasta with roasted tomatoes and Italian sausage, covered in foil with a sticky note that said 20 minutes at 350. She sat down on one of the kitchen chairs and, according to her own account, completely burst into tears. Here's what Daniel had actually done during those 4 days. When he tried to call Sarah on the first morning and realized he'd been blocked, he said he went through about an hour of fury. He was angry. He was hurt. He felt disrespected. He thought about driving to Miami. He thought about calling her friends. He thought about a lot of dramatic things, and then he stopped himself because something clicked. He realized, sitting alone in their house, that Sarah blocking him wasn't random cruelty. It was the only tool she felt she had left after asking him many times, in many ways, to give her space. She hadn't blocked him to hurt him. She'd blocked him because she didn't trust that he'd actually let her breathe otherwise. And that realization, he later told her, was genuinely painful to sit with. So instead of retaliating in anger, Daniel decided to do something unusual. He treated those 4 days like a mirror. He asked himself, what kind of husband have I actually been? What does Sarah come home to every day? Is this house a place she feels free in or a place she feels watched in? And then, methodically, quietly, he started making changes. He cleaned, he reorganized, he cooked, he thought. He went on long walks with the dogs. He called his own therapist, something he'd been putting off for months, and made an appointment. And when Sarah's flight landed, he took the dogs to his mum's so she could walk into the house without anyone demanding anything from her the moment she stepped through the door. His revenge, if you can even call it that, was becoming someone better. Sarah called Daniel after she'd heated up the pasta and eaten half of it alone at the kitchen table, still crying a little, she admits. He came home within 20 minutes. They sat across from each other in that same clean, rearranged kitchen, and they had the conversation they probably should have had years earlier. Sarah apologized for blocking him without warning. She said she knew it was jarring and that she could have handled it differently, but she also held her ground. She told him that she had needed that space, genuinely, and that she didn't regret taking it. Only the method. Daniel apologized for the years of over-calling, over-checking, over-needing. He told her about the therapy appointment. He told her about the 4 days of self-reflection. He didn't frame it as revenge, he framed it as a wake-up call that he was grateful for, even if he hadn't felt grateful in that first hour of anger. Sarah told our team that it was the most honest conversation they had ever had in 6 years of marriage. Not the loudest, not the most emotional, the most honest. 2 people finally talking straight. That was 8 months ago. Sarah and Daniel are still together. Daniel is still seeing his therapist twice a month now. Sarah has taken 2 more trips since then, and Daniel has not called excessively on either one. He sends 1 good morning text and 1 good night text and leaves the rest to her. Sarah, for her part, checks in voluntarily now, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Because there's a difference between choosing to share your day and being required to report it. The dogs are back home. The furniture stayed in its new arrangement. Sarah actually likes it better this way. The bookshelf is still alphabetical. And every few weeks, Daniel makes that pasta with roasted tomatoes and Italian sausage, just because. So what's the lesson here? Is it that you should block your spouse when you need space? No, probably not the recommended method. Is it that being blocked is secretly an opportunity for growth? Not exactly that either. The real lesson, if there is one, is this. Sometimes the most powerful response to feeling hurt or disrespected is to stop and ask yourself what the other person is actually trying to tell you, and then do something constructive with that information instead of something destructive. Daniel's revenge wasn't really revenge at all. It was reflection. And it changed his marriage more than any argument, any ultimatum, or any dramatic gesture ever could have. That's the story of Sarah and Daniel. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week on Payback Tales, we bring you stories that prove life's most complicated moments can sometimes lead to the most unexpected growth. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in Daniel's position? I'll see you in the next one.